Jane. Welcome to Dying to Live.
Hey, it's good to be here.
I'm really excited to talk to you today. I wanted to just start by you're going to give everybody kind of the skinny about Near, but I would like to just start with saying that how we came to know each other. So I was really attracted to Near like the minute that it came up in my Instagram feed, and I don't actually think I've told you this before, but the reason is actually because I was really intrigued by the design. Um,
Really?
yeah, I was like,
Okay,
"Ooh,
very cool.
this is such like a fresh, modern take
Fresh take.
for mhm, for anything in kind of the death industry, which I typically kind of describe as like shafts of wheat blowing in the wind,
Sunsets. Yes.
sunsets, a lot of
Yes.
sunsetting."
Lots of sunsets.
So when it came up, I was like, "Oh, what is this? Ooh, I have to be a part of this." And and y'all were kind of going through some changes with Near at the time, and then I was thrilled when you asked me to come on board and be a navigator, because my perspective of Near is that if there's any organization that's going to help bring the conversation about end of life navigation and the importance of it and the necessity of it to our health and well-being in this modern age, it's Near. So I'm really excited to know you and be part of it.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited about it.
So I was hoping that you might take us through just a little bit of background about Near, and maybe, start from the beginning for people who are just kind of flip to this on today and have kind of no idea about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me here. So, yeah, there's always a story behind why we do things. And so at the age of 23, mine kind of kickstarted when my fiance at the time was diagnosed with brain cancer. So we were 23, 24, about to get married. We were 30 days out. And our whole world came crashing down when he started having migraines. After migraines, we got an MRI. MRI showed that he had an incredibly large mass in his brain. And we were just immediately faced with our whole world paused. What was next? Not even the fact of like if we were going to get married, but just like, was he going to live? And it felt like in hindsight, it really was a gift for us now, but we really were faced with the reality and the thought of the end of life. I mean, we were young, we haven't thought of that yet. It was such a distant thing in the future. We didn't have to have end of life conversations or even know how they wanted to experience it. So it felt very like it was just in our face, because as we would talk to doctors and learn more and more about his diagnosis, we were given 2 years. And so it felt like we had to start making decisions and learn, what does this look like? What does treatment look like? Who's involved? How do you meet the appointments? And it was a incredible amount of shock and grief that we were kind of faced with at that time. And thankfully, his surgeries have removed the cancer. He is cancer free. I am beyond grateful to say that. And so while we can close in some ways the diagnosis of that impact and that experience of facing death and knowing that like it really is for all of us, we're all going to experience it, really transformed how I live today and how I kind of approach my work and why I do what I do. And just knowing people more on, everyone's going to have the conversation at one point in their lives. Let's make sure we have it now, or when we're able to. So that's my kind of what I bring to Near. And then my partner, Christy, my co-founder, she also has had her own personal story about the end of life and why it's so incredibly important, and how end of life care it not just impacts the patient, but impacts the caregiver and the family members. And she has some incredible stories, and it's deeply connected to who she is. And so we together owned a marketing agency. We focused on startups and nonprofits, and we had the opportunity to work with Endwell, which is a healthcare startup. It's a nonprofit focused on improving the end of life experience. And so when we worked with Endwell and Dr. Shoshana Ungerleider, who as a joy to work with. We've learned about end of life doulas, and so as we learned about this, you know, career that we were never introduced to, we kind of sparked our idea for Near of what end of life doulas, that's what they do, really were the missing pieces in some of our stories. And so we kind of did some more research and really grew to love everything the end of life doula does. And so we wanted to come alongside the doula community and help bring awareness to support what they offer to people and those who are dying and those who need them with their experience. And so with Near, I feel like with the past year and a half, pre-pandemic, even now, we started off with this like unique model, but over time, we've just been able to like evolve our work into what Near is today, and that's going to be a tech-enabled end-of-life navigation for patients, families, and caregivers.
It's such a beautiful story about weaving, our own life experiences into the work that we do and what we offer back to the world.
Mm.
Is it difficult working on this, having been through the experience that you've been through, or is it liberating, freeing? Is it somewhere in the middle? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I think any work that we have the opportunity to do, it should make a difference in our own life. But if it has the opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives, that's what fuels. That should fuel the work of why we do what we do. It shouldn't just impact us. It really should be impacting others. And to know that on the other side of this, there could be a fiance who was faced with the reality that her fiance was diagnosed with brain cancer and actually has to walk out to his death, is I want to be able to help her. I want her to be able to feel like she has a resource and a platform and an opportunity, that she's not going into it blindly. I feel like we keep pushing off the conversations about end of life and death and what you want to people that are over 50. And that's just not always the case. And I think it's okay. It's okay for it to start off being weird that we're talking about it, but it should be normal. This is part of life. This is part of why we need to be talking about it. Because it not only helps us, the people that could be impacted by it, but it just helps so many people that you're connected to know that you've been cared for well. And so it's extremely hard to balance. We're working with real people for real people and for hearts and for people's families and their own impact. But it's also a joy to know that we're helping them and we're really trying to provide them. We're trying to lighten their load with connecting them to people that we believe are really the best fit for their experience.
Yeah, I want to circle back to that for a minute, but you and I, before we jumped on, we were talking about kind of balancing life, because I was saying that I just come from my corporate work day into this episode, and you asked, how do you balance everything with Eddie Bauer, with this work? And I think you really struck a chord a second ago when you said, working on things that better the world and bringing people a service or an awareness to something that could help their health and well-being is really at the core of actually all the things that I get to do. And I feel so fortunate for that. Like through Eddie Bauer, it's all about kind of health and wellness through outdoor experiences and the community that comes with that. And then of course, the end of life work that we all do is fulfilling as well. So
yeah,
I think
definitely.
That's easier to balance when it all kind of fuels the soul.
Yeah, it feels like it's more of a conversation, not just a checklist. Like work is what you get to contribute to and feel like it rewards you and others. It's this like ongoing building of so much good and growth for yourself. I feel like it's not just a job that I show up and I'm like, well, did my 3 things today, got paid, and I'm going to go back to, what I enjoy doing. It's like, no, I get to do what I enjoy doing and I get to bring the gifts that I have to this space. And I think the end of life space is just an even more beautiful world to be in because it's for everyone. It's a human issue. Everyone, no matter age, race, wherever you are in the world, it's for you. We have an opportunity to speak to all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all going to go through it, which is
Mhm.
why it's so silly. Understandably, right? Because it's so silly that we avoid the conversation, but it's
Right,
also understandable because that's how our culture largely is built.
right.
Anything that can ease that conversation, and it's really what I feel Near also has a huge opportunity to do, as so many other organizations like Endwell and such are doing, is bringing that conversation to the mainstream.
Mhm,
I have so many clients that I've talked to um, that don't end up adopting end of life doula services, not necessarily for cost reasons, but because they don't think they need it. Maybe they don't think
mhm,
it's necessary, right? But gosh, you wouldn't say that about birth, right? You
mhm.
might not hire a birth doula, but you probably have some help along the way in the form of family
Sure,
friends somewhere.
sure. Mhm,
Caring, especially as a caregiver, like caring for people in an end of life process is taxing. And
mhm.
yes, it's also very fulfilling, but anything that we can do to support ourselves through that. And also, sometimes when you're in a caregiver role, you're doing so many of the tasks that you
Mhm.
miss out on that emotional connection, and having someone to help with the navigation really allows you to free up space for that.
Right, right. And it's also just nice to have a neutral party, right? In some sense where you just know, okay, I'm gonna complete all the things and I'm gonna serve this person, but you also just have this like support of you can you have this relationship with your navigator to say, okay, what do I do here? How do I manage this? Like, where do I go to care for myself in this exhausted day? How do I navigate this next step? And it just feels like you don't want to just search on Google what the next step is. You just want to go to somebody and you want somebody to be there and you want to have like a good, quick reference point of like, great, I texted them and I got an answer. I gave them a call and I got an answer. And that's what we want Near to be. We really want Near to be that as much as we can, that hand to hold during all of these times when you're questioning and you're exhausted. We want to like position Near right there for that person.
Yeah. Can you maybe cover a little bit about what Near offers and the different ways that people can
Yeah.
participate with Near? Because what I love about Near too are the options that are available. If I
Mhm.
want one mode of communication, I can have it. If I want a whole suite of services, I can have it. And so maybe just go into that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So Near is it's a complete online planning and self care home for patients and caregivers. So we're focusing right now on individuals with the terminal diagnosis, and so they or their caregivers would sign up for Near, and they would be connected to a Near Navigator, which is an end of life trained doula, and they would be able to go through the entire app's chat feature and have the contact with the navigator and then also see all of the planning options. And then there's an opportunity for self-care with meditations and prayers and helpful things for your own mental health. And then there's also the just logistical things of balancing your calendar and what doctor did they last see and all of the contact lists that we can just seem incredibly overwhelmed. And one of the cool things I love about the Near platform is that you as a caregiver, whether it's just you serving the patient, there's so many other people that want to know what's going on, but you don't have time to just like manage everyone else as well as do your job well. And so Near, we have a spot on Near where you can write journal entries and you can share them and you can keep people updated as well as just track your own experience for yourself. How are you feeling as you're caring for this person? If it's your spouse, if it's a relative, you want to be able to just like have a space without post-it notes. I remember when Andrew was diagnosed, it was just we had post-it notes everywhere. It was just like, go see here, go do this, don't forget this. Or like, the notes app on my phone was just like a bunch of notes because I just was taking notes at every appointment. And I would have rather had just a central hub where I could just like a dashboard where I could say, okay, this is giving me peace of mind in a chaotic time and I can keep track of everything. I can streamline communication. And then I know that like I can just ask my navigator, like, what's next? Like you see what's going on here. Like what is next? Am I missing anything? What would you recommend? Um, and so we're different from other planning tools because we really right now we focus on the individuals with terminal diagnosis and we offer that one-on-one navigation in addition to the planning tool so that people know someone's there to help. We really want it to be um, a connection tool between people that are doing all of the caregiving work or the patients with the families, and then a navigator to like really pour into them. And so it's it's an exciting platform. We also have the one-on-one care plan, which is going to be a very like one-on-one intentional, exactly what you offer, where I can meet with a navigator on Zoom. So those plans are live now, but our app is coming early fall, so that'll all be available to you.
What I love is just, again, so many options and ways to interact. And having been a caregiver in that situation, a number of times, there's always interested parties that want to have the information. And I
Mm-hmm.
know it's
Mm-hmm.
exhausting to have the same conversation about the doctor
Yeah,
appointment over and over, but to
right.
have a place to journal that and then send it to everybody who's going to want that information is priceless. I mean, so part of this is, self-care in the form of conserving energy
Right.
around communication.
Right. Yeah, because it feels like a full-time job just to keep people informed of what's going on. And so you're as a caregiver, you're like the secretary for the family, you're the nurse for the patient, you're the taxi driver for all the appointments, and it just feels like you are carrying all of these roles. Can we just simplify any of it by just at least like lifting a burden on being a communication channel for you, being a resource of offering you support from a navigator, from organization? And um, we really just believe that Near really does lighten the load for caregivers.
Yeah, I love that. I think maybe it occurs to me to take a little bit of a step back for anybody who's tuning into this episode who maybe doesn't know what an end of life doula is. And so end of life doula has been a role really forever, but it has emerged more completely in the past, 25 to 30 years. It's probably right now where birth doulaing was about 30 years ago in terms of its mainstream awareness. And doulas provide emotional and sometimes functional support at the end of life. So it could be anything from, helping to complete various pieces of paperwork to, like Jane said, helping to kind of keep track of what's the next step in the healthcare or support process. And it's a lot of emotional support as well. And that can have a range. So encourage anybody who's interested to jump on to staynear.co and take a look at the packages, because those really outline nicely kind of the various functions that doulas can provide. And I would also just say that the support that you can get from a doula in any sense, emotionally, functionally, is really limited only by your own needs, wants, and sometimes creativity too in the things that the doula can provide. So it can be a pretty complete experience depending on what your need is.
Yeah, yeah, it's an incredible role. It really does deserve the highlight that I believe is going to come. I believe it's going to become more and more in the spotlight. I think as our generation has so focused on birth doulas and a natural process and really trying to hone in that home experience, I think that all deserves to be brought to the end of life as well. I think everyone deserves to have the plan that they want to stick to at the end of life. But I think, as we've seen, most people want it to be at home. And I think the opportunity to have an end of life doula there um, to help navigate that way is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and also kind of the generational switch to really mindful self-care as well
Yeah.
is, another
Mhm.
way that this role is coming online for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I think the other really helpful piece that is part of the doula role is all about education. So knowing what the dying process is and looks like is helpful in helping folks that are there to support, a dying person understand what is happening. Because
Hmm.
in my own experiences, before becoming a doula and being educated and going through people's deaths with them, whether hospice was present or there was a hospital involved, there's such a reticence to talk about death that nothing was ever explained. And it was so intimidating to watch my loved ones go through the dying process and think things are terribly wrong when actually, it's actually just the body's natural process. So peace of mind through education and information is another important doula role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many. The more we educate and the more we learn, the more we're going to be prepared for the time that we're all going to experience. And so the conversations need to start now. We need to normalize the conversations and not be weird about it, and just make it an okay thing to talk about, and get to know what our family and friends, what they think about it. Just start the conversation.
Yeah, it's such a gift for our loved ones. I think that's going to be the name of this episode. Just don't be weird about it.
Yeah, don't be weird about it. Just don't be like, it's not something, because when you're weird about it, then you're reserved, and you're like, it's just not. There's enough strange things that go on in that experience. Like, we've just got to be as educated as we can be, so that we approach it with healthier expectations, with a sense of like, what do I need? Like, I'm exhausted. Like, okay, I was told this season was going to be beyond exhausting. Like, how can I care for myself? How can I care for my heart so that I'm the best caregiver to this person? Education is huge.
We just had in my doula collective here in Seattle, Stone Circles, we just had we do like a monthly illumination, which is a free talk or death cafe or sharing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And our last one featured Melissa Hall. She runs a law practice called Small, SMOL Law. And cool. She deals mostly with the LGBTQ community at the end of life. And the other thing that I'm really learning too, where doula and end of life support comes in really handy, is that for some specific audiences, there are certain things that need to be in place before you ever get to the point of having to think about your death, whether it's a diagnosis or accident or anything that you want to make sure that you take care of through paperwork and through a legal process, so that you can have the end of life and the post-death that you really want to have. And specifically, this was around folks who maybe don't identify with their family of origin, but have chosen family that they want to have make decisions for them. Depending on what state you're in or what country you're in, the laws vary, and there are specific things you have to put in end of life paperwork, even wills, to make sure that you can have the right people making decisions for you and the right people present with you, and access to your HIPAA information and stuff. So
and that's something like right there. So many people just don't know of the amount of paperwork. Like, there's so much paperwork. Like, we need to, and there are some incredible pre-planning apps and companies that we love. We just think they do an incredible job. But the people that don't want to plan ahead still need to do the paperwork regardless. And so even as Christine and I have sorted and built this app, I've been surprised of all the paperwork that we've had to walk through. And I'm like, this is crucial. Like, I can see if this form wasn't filled out, then like this causes a huge wave of chaos that's already in a chaotic situation. And so, it's going to be it's all of those like unknowns need to be brought to light of get the paperwork done, know what you want, so that we can help people achieve how they want to be cared for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the space and I learned 5 new things, the other day, and now I'm going to go back and redo a few things. So it definitely takes a little bit of research and know-how, but there are people that can help you do that, which is really nice these days. Do you want to mention a couple of the pre-planning services that you all really think are great?
Yeah, I would. We love Lantern. Lantern's an incredible pre-planning platform that offers just some really cool things. I know they have a few updates coming up too, so I would check them out. And then Cake is also a great one that has a pretty fun way of doing it. Their branding from a design perspective is quite fun. And so those would probably be the two that I would suggest. Like, start the conversation, get the paperwork done, and just even learn what you don't know,
Mhm.
um, and then when you're in a time of chaos and you need a navigator, then that's when we fit in and we can help you kind of take the next step.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is wait for that chaos to ensue before you try to tackle all of the
Right.
things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have loved speaking with you today. Is there anything else you want to share about Near? And if not, then you can tell people where to find Near.
Yeah. I would just say, like, check out our website, staynear.co. We do have the care plans if you are in a time of if you or your family member or even just a coworker is acting as a caregiver, like, send them our way. We have navigators that are ready to help and serve them. And then our tech platform, which will serve as the main dashboard for logistical and emotional and planning needs, that'll be available early fall. And so we're excited to launch that, and um, really believe it's going to be the next best step towards um, normalizing it and supporting people better in the end of life space. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled to be a part of Near and so happy to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.